I think that the participants are there from outside Kerala also, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. We have several participants from outside Kerala.
What is the total number of participants in this course, Radhika? Total number of participants?
Total 150 registered participants are there, ma'am.
Okay. So, respected professors and all participants in this course, a very good morning to all. Directly, I am going to the presentation. So today the topic given to me is to talk about the ground response analysis. I think this topic as a whole is related to the earthquake engineering. But my side, I am purely talking about the effect of soil on the ground, on the earthquake response of structures, how the presence of soil affect the response of structures. As a geotechnical engineer, I am giving more emphasis to the soil properties which are responsible for the amplification or de-amplification of earthquake motions coming to the bedrock. So that sense, today the topic is mainly concentrated on the ground response analysis, that is purely on geotechnical aspects. And when we are talking about the geotechnical earthquake engineering, the first thing comes is what is the intensity of earthquake. So that effect, that is how the earthquake causes, that is source of earthquake, and how the fault rupture occurs, and the nature of the rupture, the intensity of the rupture, and the type of waves generated, etc. That is the first point. Then coming into the wave propagation, how this generated wave from the source moves to the surface, that is wave propagation. And when it reaches to the bedrock level, it comes in contact with the soil layers above it. That soil layers are very narrow layers. Sometimes it can vary from 0 to 100 meters, more than 100 meters of soil layers above the bedrock level. So what is the effect of this soil layer on the intensity or the nature of earthquake motion reaching at the base of the bedrock? That is at the base of the soil layer where it meets with the bedrock. So that part, that is wave propagation part, is also not addressed in this today's presentation. So today's presentation is mainly concentrating on how the earthquake motion changes when it moves from the bedrock level to the surface. So the path of the wave propagation from the bedrock level to the surface, during that movement, that is travel of the waves, what happens to the waves and how much it changes, how we can account that change in the motion. That terms only addressed in this presentation. And also the determination of soil properties and soil investigation required to analyze the geotechnical properties of the soil to do the earthquake analysis. That part is also not concentrating in this presentation. But during the presentation, if you have any clarifications or doubts related to these topics, you can stop me and you can directly interact with me. But my presentation, I am concentrating mainly how from the bedrock the waves travels to the ground surface and how we can account this effect in the analysis. That is the meaning of ground response analysis. So now I am going to my presentation with this introduction. So our presentation topic is how the waves propagates from the bedrock level to the ground surface. So ground surface is the motions or the waves reaching at the ground surface is called free field motion. That is free field motion. So how we can calculate the free field motion from the bedrock motion? That is the meaning of ground response analysis. That is bedrock motion is going to the free field motion. How we can arrive the bedrock motion, arrive the free field of motion from the bedrock motion. That analysis is called ground response analysis. So reaching the ground response analysis, we have different steps. That is, we should know the source and the wave propagation theories, and we should know how we can determine the soil properties and rock properties. After that, only the analysis comes. But these preliminary portions are not addressed in this. I am directly going to the steps of ground response analysis here.
Ma'am, are you sharing the PPT, ma'am?
Yes. Now I am going to share my PPT.
Okay, thank you.
I hope, can you see my slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So all participants, welcome to our department, that is Department of Civil Engineering, College of Engineering, Trivandrum. So it is a very, that is ancient college, started in 1960s. So it is the number one college in Kerala government or in Kerala state. We have totally BTech and MTech students, and BTech every year the intake is 140 students, and we are running 6 MTech programs in geotechnical engineering, structural engineering, transportation, environmental, then hydraulics and geoinformatics. Like that, MTech programs are running here, and research activities are there. It is one of the QAP center. Our college is a QAP center, and PhD programs are going on here in all the departments, divisions. That is geotech, structure, and all divisions. PhD programs are also running, and we are having different sponsored research projects in college. And laboratory facilities are also available, very good laboratory facilities with all modern equipments and softwares. In addition to that, we are the leading consultant to most of the government agencies and private agencies in Kerala. So these are the introduction about our department. And coming to the topic, it is ground response analysis from my side. So when we talk about the ground response analysis, initially I introduced that the influence of soil on the nature of earthquake or the earthquake damage, how the damage occurs, the nature of the damage depends on or influenced by the local soil conditions. So this situation was realized or recognized for many years back. We are in 1950s and 1940s. We know that the influence of soil conditions on the nature of earthquake damage. That is, the soil conditions can influence the characteristics of the motion. That is, any ground motion has main characteristics. That is, amplitude, then frequency, content, and duration. These are called the characteristics of a ground vibration. So ground vibration characteristics are its amplitude. Amplitude can be represented in the way of velocity, displacement, or acceleration. Any one of the term can be used for designating the amplitude. That is, amplitude of acceleration, amplitude of velocity, and amplitude of displacement. Any term we can use for the designation of amplitude. So the second term which determines the character of a ground motion is frequency content of that motion. So what is the frequency range or the frequency content of the motion? That is the second characteristics. And third is the duration of the ground motion. That is how much time the earthquake or that disturbance existed in the ground. That is important. That is duration of ground motion. Most of the earthquake, the duration is very small, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3, 4, or 5, that much small duration is there. The extent of their influence. So the extent of the influence of soil layers depends on the geometry of the layers. So what is the depth of the layers and how much area it contains, that type of things. That is, geometry of the soil layers can influence the nature of earthquake damage. The second is material properties, the nature of the or the type of the materials, clay or its sand or the rock. Then what is the nature of the earthquake or level of the ground surface, all the ground level, all these properties, that is material properties, can influence the earthquake damage. In addition to that, site topography, if it is a hill or a valley, that type of site topography can also influence the nature of earthquake damage. So when an earthquake input motion reaches to the bedrock level, this motion is influenced by the topography of the site, the geometry of the site material, and the material properties. These can influence the input motion. Here the input motion means the waves reaching at the bedrock level. So the waves reaching at the bedrock level is addressed here as the input motion. So this input motion is influenced by the soil conditions such as geometry, its properties, site topography, etc. So based on this, we will get the output motion. Here output motion is called the motion reaching at the free ground surface. That is free surface motion. So this is the pictorial representation of ground response analysis. So here in this picture, an earthquake phenomena in the view of a civil engineer is represented here. It is a multidisciplinary approach. So you can see the first thing is the source characteristics. That is seismology. Most of the time, this area is dealt with the seismologist. So source characteristics. Hello, is any disturbance? Hello. Hello? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. No disturbance, isn't it?
No, ma'am, it's okay.
It's okay. Mm. So the source characteristics, it is the seismology part where the rupture or fault breaking happens. So this study needs more attention, but most of the time this is handled by the seismologist. So where is the initiating point? And
Ma'am, sorry to disturb. Ma'am?
hello?
Hello, ma'am. Can you please put it in the screen slideshow mode?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
So this is the fault features. That is, you can see the fault area, rupture area is divided into different fault elements for the analysis. And they will consider the nature of the rupture propagation. So by doing a detailed study, they will assess what is the source characteristics. So basically, the nature of the waves reaching at the surface has some influence of its source characteristics. Basically, the depth, that is focal depth, and the intensity of the rupture, if it is small or big. So based on all these things, the nature of the wave reaches to the surface is influenced, because we already know that the intensity or the magnitude of earthquake has an effect on the waves reaching at the ground surface. If magnitude is less, the intensity of waves reaching or the amplitude of waves reaching at the surface will be less. So the source characteristic has an influence on the nature of the waves reaching to the surface. Another criteria is the nature of the wave propagation. What is the material through which the waves propagates and reaches to the surface? So these rock particles through which, or these earth layers through which the waves propagates and reaches to the bedrock level. Here, this is the bedrock level of the bedrock. So through these rocks, the waves travel and reaches to the bedrock surface. So this propagation characteristics also influences the nature of the waves reaching at the surface. So first characteristics is source characteristics, and second one is propagation characteristics. So most of the time, these three, this area, that is inside the earth, this area is dealt with seismologist. So by doing analysis, different seismological studies, they will come up with one input motion. It is the motion at the bedrock level. So once this motion reaches at the bedrock level, it has to pass through the soil layers. And after passing through the soil layers, it reaches to the different types of structures. Sometimes the structure is very small, that height-wise it is short structure. Sometimes the structure is very tall structures. Sometimes high-rise towers type of structures. And sometimes the nuclear power plant type of, that is very critical type of structures. So once the motion reaches at the ground surface, it has to interact with the different types of structures. Then the structural analysis, that is structural engineer will come into picture, and he will do some analysis and find out what is the nature of vibration of this structure, like this type of time history. So these are the nature of the vibration after the structural analysis. But if a structural engineer if we do an analysis with this bedrock motion as the input motion, what the response he is getting by his structural analysis is not correct, because he has to take into account the change of this input motion when it passes through the soil layers. These soil layers can influence the characteristic of this input motion. Actually, this input motion is given by the seismologist based on source and propagation characteristics. So if we give directly this input motion into a structure, and if you are doing a structural analysis, the output you are getting is not exactly the real situation. So in between, you have to do an analysis called a ground response analysis, such that this input energy is influenced by the soil layers, and that influence also should taken into account. And after doing ground response analysis, you should calculate the free field ground motion. And you should do your studies, that is structural analysis, by using this free field ground motion. Then only you can correctly predict the nature of your structure behaves under an earthquake loading. That is the importance of ground response analysis. So ground response analysis, actually that analysis is a connecting point between the input motion given by the seismologist and the structural engineer who wants to do the actual response of the structure. So the duty of a ground response analysis engineer is to convert this input motion into free field motion. Now I hope that you have got an idea why the ground response analysis is necessary and what is the meaning of the ground response analysis. Then we can go into the ground response analysis by looking into the effect of soil on ground motion. So here the fault rupture, it is taken at a distance of large depth up to 10 kilometers or something as an example. So waves are propagating and it reaches to the different site A, B and C. Here you can see that the site A, the soil layer, the depth of the soil layer is more compared to site B and site C. Actually, site C is an outcropping site where it directly rests on the bedrock because the bedrock is exposed. So there is no soil layer here. It is directly exposed. Here you can see a small depth of soil layer, but it rests on a large layer thickness. So if you take about the response or the acceleration in 3 points, you can see this response is different in different points. A has a different ground motion, B is also different, and C is also different. But when you go into the response spectrum of these 3 motions, clearly you can see the pattern change in the response spectrum. Here see the frequency content is very high compared to the other 2 cases. That is, in a very large frequency range, the motion is active. That is, motion is active. But you go into the B, it shows another pattern. So we go to the outcrop rock region, you can see a very hard peak at only a particular frequency. After that, the influence is very less. So the pattern of the spectral response changes with the depth of soil layers. So this is visible from this figure. That is, these are called the spectral acceleration. Spectral acceleration for point A, spectral acceleration for point B, and spectral acceleration for point C. So the spectral acceleration variation or the change is noted in the three cases. You can see the frequency content of the motion changes, the nature or the pattern of the movement changes due to the presence of soil layers beneath this. So this is also a more clear picture about the profile. The spectral variation is observed here. Then you can see the layer. Here it is a clay sand layer, clay sand profile is observed in this point. Here you can see that the acceleration, the spectral acceleration is 0.1 g. But when you go to the, that is Market Street something, this particular location, it is on the outcrop where you can see a very large peak for a particular time period only, that is 0.12 g. So in rocky layers, we will observe a very large peak for a particular time period, and after that it decays. But in soil layers, that is deeper soil layers, that frequency content will be very large. For a large frequency range, the wave is active, but the acceleration range may be less because of the damping of the material. So this phenomena is observed in Mexico earthquake in 1985. So in Mexico earthquake, that observation is a very leading, that is the site-specific example for geotechnical engineers and earthquake engineers. In Mexico earthquake, the source of the earthquake is that is the damages occurred in the near the source of this earthquake is very small. The quantity of damage is very small near the source. The intensity is more, the intensity of earthquake or the magnitude of earthquake or the energy release may be more near the source. But surprisingly, what happened is the damage, the quantity of damage is small near the source. But 380 kilometers away from the source in the Mexico City, where that is the large number of buildings are located in this city, but here an enormous damage occurs. And this damage happened only in a small part of the city, not the whole city. It happened only a small part of the city, which is located 380 kilometers from the source. But near the source, the damage is very less. Other part of the city also, the damage is very less. But a small part of the city, the damage, enormous amount of damage has happened to that area. What is the reason for that? So this is the history given in the textbook grammar about this incident. It is happened in September 1985. Then Michoacan earthquake caused only moderate damage in the vicinity of its epicenter, that is the Pacific coast of Mexico, but caused extensive damage some 350 kilometers away in Mexico City. Studies of ground motion recorded at different sites in the Mexico City illustrated the significant relation between soil conditions and damaging ground motion, led to important advances in understanding the cyclic response of plastic clays. So they well documented this study. That is, before the earthquake itself, they made because that region is almost prone to earthquake. So they are doing a lot of studies related to earthquake in the area, that is Mexico. So they installed measuring equipments in the region. So based on the measurements, they arrived some conclusions. So that is interesting. We can see this their studies in detail. So here you can see they divided the region into three. It is a hilly zone. It is very near to the that is epicenter. Then lake zone where the damages has occurred. So in between there is a layer called the transition zone. So they divided the area into three zones, that is hilly zone, transition zone and lake zone. So it is a hill. After the hill, it enters into the valley where it is a lake zone. So hilly zone, then a transition zone. After that, it goes to a valley, that is lake zone. So they made instruments at these places. You can see these red places are their instrumentation locations for different agencies in that area. That is hilly zone instrumentation. And also you can see in lake zone also instrumentations are there for measuring the earthquake. So different agencies established the earthquake measuring instruments in that area. So this is the section. If you look into the section of the region, you can say the first one is a hilly zone, and the second one is that sloping area that is called the transition zone, and the third region is called the lake zone. And this shows the level of the bedrock level, and this shows the ground surface level. So this is the depth of the soil layers. The depth of the soil layers varies from hilly to the lake zone. Hilly zone, it is nearly outcropping, and sloping zone, a small depth of layer is there, soil layer. But in lake zone, you can see a deeper depth of soil, which is because of the lake zone, it is soft clay deposit. So this is the deposit contour of the region. You can see this region is the foothill zone. Foothill zone where the instrumented part is shown here. And then this is the transition zone, the ground surface contour, transition zone. And here you can see the deposits like older lake deposits. This is the contour of the lake deposits, and this is the contour of the virgin lake deposits. This is the contour of the deposits of that region. This is hilly zone and transition zone, and the deposits of older lake deposits and virgin lake deposits. And this figure shows the contour of the depth of the depth to bottom of soft clay in meters. So here it is outcropping, and in this region, because in the transition region, it is nearly hello, Radhika. Hello, Radhika.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
Can I take a 5-minute break because in my department due to principal one urgent thing is only 5 minutes. Can I take it?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Participants, please wait for 5 minutes. Ma'am will join shortly.
Hello, good morning. Hello, you can come back. Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Because of some urgent official matter, so I want to send an email. Sorry for the distraction. Can I continue?
Yes, ma'am. Please continue. Thank you.
So we are discussing about the depth of the soil layers in that Mexico City. So we can see that this is the contour of it. So this is the hilly region. In the transition zone, the depth to bottom of the soft clay is 20 meters. So when you go to the lake region, so it ranges from 20 to nearly 60 meters. 20 to 60 meters. So the layer depth goes on increasing. So the earthquake motion recorded by the instruments at the two sites, that is UNAM site, that means it is an agency there in Mexico. Their measurement instrument is installed in the hilly zone. That instrument recorded an acceleration motion of this pattern. So you can see that the peaks are very less in the area, that is UNAM recorded area. That is the that is accelerometer installed on the hilly area. Then this is the instrument. SCT is the agency name. So the instrument installed in that area has shown a high peak of nearly 200 centimeter per second square of acceleration in the lake area. That means the peak acceleration in the lake area is almost 5 times greater than the hilly regions. So this is the inference from this recording. So this recording shows that the peak acceleration recorded at the lake zone is 5 times greater than that in the hilly zone. So this is shows the importance or the influence of site soil conditions on the input ground motion. So the ground response analysis, the definition wise, it is the determination of the response of the soil deposit to the motion of bedrock immediately beneath it. To the motion of the bedrock immediately beneath it. Under ideal conditions, a complete ground response analysis would model the rupture mechanism at the source of an earthquake. That I already explained. If you go for a complete ground response analysis, we have to start from the source, that is from the seismology itself, to the wave propagation through the earth materials to the top of the bedrock. Then after that, from the bedrock into the soil layers and up to the free field surface. This is a complete ground response analysis. But we know that for the engineering point of view, by doing this much rigorous analysis for a particular project is not that much easy. We cannot start from the seismology, do all these analyses, and finally you have to go into the bedrock input motion, from bedrock input motion to the free field motion. So this whole business doing in one step is not that much easy. Therefore, what we are doing is we are breaking this into 2 levels. The first level is source and wave propagation and the calculation of bedrock motion. That term is taken on a one section, and the second section is the calculation of bedrock to the free field. That is taken as the second case. But as our engineering purpose, we are depending on the motion given by the seismologist, that is the bedrock motion. And from the bedrock motion, we are calculating the free field motion. The first part, we are not dealing mostly. Most of the time, it is dealt by the seismologist. That doesn't mean that it is not an important business. It is equally important as the ground response analysis. It is the preliminary or the first part of the ground response analysis. Then what is the importance and where we want to do the ground response analysis? Ground response analysis are used to predict the ground surface motions required for the development of design response spectra. If you want to get a design response spectra for the analysis of your structure or the design of your structure for a particular level of acceleration, spectral acceleration, before that you have to go for the ground response analysis. That is what initially I told. Calculating the spectral acceleration based on the bedrock input motion is not actually a good step. It will make mistakes in the structural response or the design of the structure. So in that case, you should do a ground response analysis and arrive the ground motion or free field motion, and you have to develop the design response spectra based on that. Then second thing is determination of dynamic stress and strain for the evaluation of liquefaction hazards. When liquefaction hazards occurs, the correct calculation of the dynamic stress and strains occurring into the particular region has to be determined. So in that case, the ground response analysis is very, very essential. Then when we want to do the stability check of earth retaining structures or landslides, that is slope stability situations, the determination of these free surface ground motions are very important compared to the bedrock motions. So the bedrock motions, it should be converted into ground surface motions when you are calculating for the stability of slopes and retaining structures. So a ground response analysis, finally what it is the response of soil layers to the motion of bedrock immediately below it. It is not the earthquake. It is actually what it is, the response of a soil layer to the movement of bedrock immediately below it. That is the movement of bedrock immediately below it. So this is very, very essential part of your analysis. If the structural engineers, if they are very perfect and they are doing very good analysis for the response of the structure by using different types of softwares, then finite element analysis, nonlinear analysis. After all these analysis, whatever the input you are giving to the base of the structure is very, very important. Based on that, only the response you will get at the end. Therefore, the accurate or the accuracy in the calculation of that input motion at the base of your structure, it is called the free field motion. That is very important in the analysis of structures and other stability structures. But this analysis is most of the times the complexity of the ground response analysis is very high. So we want to reduce the complexity because the wave propagation is a complex phenomena. There is reflection, refraction, and scattering. All these phenomena are there when waves propagate through the layers. When it enters from one layer to the next layer, there is the phenomena of reflection, refraction, and scattering of waves occurs. So when it enters into the next layer, due to this effect, its nature will be changed. So if you go for layer by layer by layer, this analysis becomes more complex. So we want to reduce this complexity. We are adopting most of the times an one-dimensional ground response analysis. So this is the picture of a one-dimensional ground response analysis. In one-dimensional ground response analysis, so we are considering something, one fault is there. Then the source reaches to the soil layers. When it travels from the bedrock to the soil layers, you can see the movement path. We are assuming it as nearly vertical wave propagation near the ground surface. That is the main assumption in the one-dimensional ground response analysis. That is refraction processes that produces nearly vertical wave propagation near the ground surface. That is the basic assumption we are adopting in one-dimensional ground response analysis. Once the waves reaches the bedrock, from the bedrock, it travels through the soil layers such that it is nearly vertical propagation. This is one of the assumption of one-dimensional ground response analysis. Then another assumptions are all the layers, that the layer boundaries are, soil layer boundaries are horizontal. And the soil deposit is subjected to such waves propagating vertically from the underlying bedrock. So we are neglecting other components, SV, and different scattered components are eliminating, and we are considering only the SH waves, horizontally propagating shear waves, which is traveling vertically from the underlying bedrock. That type of propagation is only considered in the analysis. The soil and bedrock surface are assumed to extend infinitely in the horizontal direction. So we have done so many examples of ground response analysis by various researchers and practitioners. From their studies and real observations, what we are getting is there is a reasonable agreement with the measured responses in many cases. Therefore, an one-dimensional ground response analysis is sufficient for most of the practical situations. But some very critical analysis only we have to go for a non-linear or a three-dimensional analysis. Suppose in case of very critical structures like nuclear power plants and other critical facilities, only we have to go for a three-dimensional or a non-linear analysis. Other practical situations, this one-dimensional ground response analysis is reasonable agreement with the measured response in many cases. Then the definition of the main terms. I already introduced to you the terms in the ground response analysis, that is bedrock motion. It is called the input motion, and when the input motion moves through the soil layers, it reaches the free surface. It is called the output motion. Then coming into the analysis procedure, we can do the ground response analysis, that is one-dimensional analysis, in using two approaches, that is linear approach and the non-linear approach. So most of the times the non-linear approach is not necessary also in practical situations. So we want to incorporate the non-linear nature of the soil. In that situation, we can go for an equivalent linear approach. So linear approach and equivalent linear approach are the main two approaches we used for the ground response analysis. So by simplifying the ground response analysis situation, see here this is the input motion, it passes through the soil layers. So in the soil layers, we have to consider the stiffness and the damping of the soil layers in the analysis, and you have to arrive an output motion. So when we want to calculate the stiffness and the damping, that is the spring dashpot model. It is called the spring dashpot model. So when we go for the spring dashpot model, these properties, that is stiffness and the damping properties, are calculated based on the properties of the soil layer. So the soil layer properties required for the analysis are shear wave velocity, density of the soil, then Poisson's ratio of the soil, material damping factor, and the thickness of the layers. These are the parameters required for the ground response analysis. That is shear wave velocity of the layers, thickness of the layers, density of the layers, Poisson's ratio of the layers, and damping factor. The above parameters may be obtained through in situ geophysical and geotechnical survey and appropriate dynamic laboratory test. That I told you earlier, that the determination of dynamic properties is also a part of the ground response analysis. If we want to do a good quality of ground response analysis, we need an accuracy in the soil properties. Accurate soil properties, they should be used for the ground response analysis. So we need in situ properties, soil properties, and the geotechnical survey for calculating the thickness of layers, and appropriate laboratory test to arrive the what it is shear wave velocity, damping ratio, Poisson's ratio, and shear modulus. This type of property should be appropriately calculated by using laboratory facilities. Then in ground response analysis, what we are doing is, just you imagine our sieve analysis test. So we are putting the input motion on the top of the sieve, and we do some sieving process, and finally you will get an output. Okay, from each sieve. Each sieve is one layer. So from after passing through the first sieve, you will get one input. That is, some amount will come out. Some will be filtered out or sieved out. One part will be sieved out through that sieve. Then the remaining only goes to the second sieve. There also you will do the sieving process. Some amount will be taken out, and the remaining goes to the next sieve. Like that, in the ground response analysis also, from the bedrock level, the wave reaches to the first soil layer. There some changes happens. After that changes, it goes to the second layer. There also some sieving process happens. Then goes to the third layer. Like that, it enters into the free surface. So when it passes through these layers, the sieving process is called amplification or de-amplification. When the waves passes through these layers, this layer can have two choices. One is pass our sieve analysis, it can retain or it can pass. Like that, here two options are, it can amplify or de-amplify the movement. Okay, so it can do amplification or de-amplification. Okay, so this is the choice. So depending upon that choice, in our analysis, we are introducing a parameter called transfer function. So this transfer function is an important parameter which controls the passage of these waves through the layers. So first you take the input motion. So input motion is represented by Fi, and its phase angle is represented by phi I. I think most of them are having a preliminary idea about the soil dynamics. So every signal has two things. It has one phase portion and amplitude portion, and if amplitude is f phi and the phase is f phi I. That is initial conditions. So when it passes through the layers, each of these initial component is multiplied by a transfer function. So the output is equal to input into transfer function. So amplitude output is equal to amplitude input into transfer function. Similarly, phase spectra output is equal to input into transfer function. So all the input motions are multiplied with the transfer function once it reaches to the next layer. So from the bedrock, the motion goes to the first layer. There, the first layer multiplies it with its transfer function. Then it goes to the second layer. There again, the second layer multiplies it with its own transfer function. Then it goes to the third layer. There again, it undergoes a multiplication. And after that, finally, it comes out. So each layer has its own transfer function. So input is multiplied by the transfer function that goes to the output. So output from first layer goes to the second layer. Again, the process happens. It is multiplied with the transfer function. Then it goes to the next output. So this is the way of proceeding a ground response analysis. So suppose this is a bedrock motion. Okay, you obtain a transfer function. Transfer function is also a waveform. So you multiply this ground response motion with this transfer function, you will get the free field motion. So this ground response analysis in linear approach, it is divided into different, that is nearly 3 cases. So in these cases, we are considering the layer as homogeneous. Here you can see a homogeneous layer of thickness h. The damping is not considered here. It is an undamped soil. So damping ratio is 0 here. And it is resting on a rigid rock. Rock is very hard. So whatever movement comes to the rock, it is reflected back. It is very rigid material. So you calculate the transfer function for this particular layer. So this is the transfer function. Transfer function is equal to 1 by cos omega h by Vs. So you can see the waveform of the transfer function. So you give different values, that is 0, cos 0, pi by 2, 3 pi by 2. You give different cos values, you can obtain different transfer functions here. When it is 0, the function is 1. When you go for pi by 2, the cos value, it becomes 1 by 0. Therefore, the transfer function goes to infinity. Okay. So based on this, you can arrive the omega value also. That is omega h by Vs is equal to 0. That means omega is equal to 0. Then omega h by Vs is equal to 1. That means omega is equal to omega h by Vs is equal to pi by 2. That means omega is equal to pi into Vs by 2h. So this way you can calculate the transfer function and the corresponding frequency. Cos, you give different values for cos. This is cos 0, cos pi by 2, cos 3 pi by 2, cos 5 pi by 2. Like that, you can different values for this range, this transfer function. And you can see this is for 0, cos 0 is equal to 1. And cos 1 is equal to 0. Therefore, cos pi by 2 is equal to 0. Therefore, it goes to infinity, 1 by 0. At that particular time, the natural frequency is equal to pi into Vs by 2h. So this is the transfer function. So this is transfer function for damped soil. So if you consider the damping ratio, your equation will be like this: 1 by root of like cos squared omega h by Vs plus this damping ratio also comes into picture. So because of damping ratio, you can see that the motion is damped after some amount of frequencies. It should undergoes damping. Damping is 5%. You can see here the movement is like this. If damping goes to 10%, the amplitude again reduces. The damping goes to 20%, again the transfer function, you can see it is like this. So depending upon the, here there is no damping, therefore all the frequencies you can see the same pattern. But because of damping, when the frequency goes on or the time goes on, the response decreases. When we are talking about the steps of a ground response analysis, this is A. A is the bedrock motion, the time history of bedrock motion. You can see here. This is the time history. So you change this time history into its Fourier spectra. This second figure is the Fourier amplitude of this acceleration time history. So any softwares can that is dealing with time history, acceleration, and that is dimensional dynamic analysis softwares can convert an acceleration time history into the corresponding Fourier spectrum, Fourier amplitude. So this is called the Fourier amplitude. So the first, the input motion should be converted into Fourier amplitude. That is the first step. Then you calculate the transfer function. Transfer function, as I explained earlier, based on the situation, what is the nature of your soil, based on that the required values are, you need the shear wave velocity and the thickness of the layer. Based on that, you calculate the transfer function. Then multiply the Fourier spectra of your amplitude with the transfer function. Okay, then you will get this figure, sixth one, that is Fourier amplitude of the output motion. Fourier amplitude of the output motion. Then you do the reverse process. Fourier amplitude is converted into acceleration time history. This is the output motion. So first input motion is converted into Fourier amplitude, and Fourier amplitude is multiplied by the transfer function. Then transfer function multiplied Fourier spectra is obtained here. It is again reconverted into the acceleration time history. This is what the free field motion, what you are getting after doing the ground response analysis. So the softwares like Shake 2000, it is using, it can go for linear and equivalent. This is only a linear approach. Now I explained to you. So linear approach and equivalent linear approach are there. So both of the approaches, the basic procedure is same. One is first you take the bedrock motion, convert it into its Fourier form, Fourier amplitude. Then multiply the Fourier amplitude with the transfer function corresponding to the soil properties. Then that Fourier amplitude, that multiplied Fourier amplitude spectra is converted into again the acceleration time history. That will give you the free field motion. These are the 6 steps or 5 steps involved in the analysis. If you are thinking about an elastic rock, because in earlier case we are dealt with the rigid rock, assumption is rigid rock, but most of the cases the bedrock may not be rigid. It also should have an elastic properties. So you have to take into account the elastic nature of the soil. When we go for the elastic nature of the soil, what we have to do is we have to consider the stress waves that reach the soil rock boundary will be reflected partially. If it is a rigid rock, the most of the waves reaching the bedrock is reflected back into the soil layers. But when the rock is elastic, the amount of waves reflecting back into the soil layer is less. Because of that reason, the response will be actually reduced due to the elastic nature of the soil, of the rock. The bedrock, the effect of bedrock is actually the response is reduced. The amplitude is reduced due to the elastic nature of the soil, because the radiation damping of the elastic rock also comes into picture in it. So this is the change what we can observe in transfer function. Here, suppose if it is an infinite, in the first case we have seen an infinite amplitude. When it goes to an elastic rock, the amplitude drastically reduces because of the elastic nature of the bedrock. Then we will come into a general, some thumb rules. So the nth natural frequency of a soil deposit. What is the natural frequency of a soil deposit? Natural frequency of the soil deposit is approximately equal to Vs by pi by 2 plus n pi, where n goes to 0. If you want a first mode, that is fundamental mode, you can put it as 0. So omega n, that is first fundamental mode, is equal to Vs into pi by 2h. Vs into pi by 2h. Since the peak amplification factor decreases with the increasing natural frequency, the greatest amplification factor will occur approximately at the lowest natural frequency, which is also known as the fundamental frequency. That is a natural frequency, fundamental frequency. So here omega 0 is equal to pi, n is equal to 0. So this term vanishes, and omega 0 fundamental frequency is equal to pi into Vs by 2h. Or the time period, characteristic time period, fundamental characteristic time period is equal to, you reverse this, which is equal to 2 pi by omega 0. Ts is equal to 2 pi by omega 0. And you substitute for omega 0, we will get time period is equal to 4h by Vs. 4h by Vs. So the two parameters which deciding the time period of vibration is 4h by Vs. H is the thickness, layer thickness, and Vs is the shear wave velocity. So the characteristic site period, it is very important term when we go for structural response. The characteristic site period, which depends only on the thickness and shear wave velocity of the soil, provides a very useful indication of the period of vibration at which the most significant amplification can be expected. That is, resonance condition can be expected. That is equal to 4h by Vs. Then we go for the equivalent linear analysis. We already know that soil behavior is non-linear. So the linear approach must be modified to provide a reasonable estimate of ground response analysis for practical problems of interest. The actual non-linear hysteric stress strain behavior or cyclically loaded soils can be approximated by an equivalent linear soil properties. Here also initially I took a statement such that I am not going much about the behavior of cyclically loaded soils. So actually they are nonlinear behavior, and this nonlinear behavior are approximated by equivalent linear soil properties by using shear modulus and damping ratio. When we summarize the equivalent linear analysis, the process is like this. The input motion is there, and we need to get an output motion at the ground surface. In between, the soil layers are there. That soil layers need a transfer function for multiplication. For obtaining the transfer function, we have to take into account. In the earlier case, we are taking only the shear wave velocity. That is a low strain property. Shear wave velocity and thickness of layers. This is a low strain property. But in the case of equivalent linear analysis, we have to consider the degradation of the soil properties, that is soil modulus with increased strain. When strain increases, the modulus of the material decreases. That also should be taken into account in the equivalent linear analysis. So once the modulus decreases with the strain, the damping ratio increases. So these two effects, that is variation of the shear modulus with the shear strain, it is called the modulus reduction curve. And when the modulus goes on decreasing, the damping ratio increases with the strain. That also should be taken into account in the nonlinear analysis. So we can, when we go for an equivalent linear analysis, initially you have to calculate an effective shear strain corresponding to your peak shear strain. So effective shear strain is initially taken as 65% of the peak strain. Then corresponding to this 65% of peak strain, that is called the effective shear strain, you have to proceed your analysis. The proceeding steps are: initial estimate of shear modulus and the damping are made for each layer. You have to determine the initial soil properties of shear modulus and damping ratio of your soil layer. Initially estimated values usually correspond to the same strain level. The low strain values are often used for the initial estimate. For making initial estimate, you should go for low strain values. You should go for low strain values. So here you can see that this is a low strain shear value G1 is taken initially, and corresponding to that we are getting an effective shear strain. So through your analysis, you will get an effective shear strain, and based on that effective shear strain, again you calculate the second G from the graph. Okay, that is the second iteration. By using first G and the damping ratio, do the first iteration, arrive the shear strain. Based on the arrived shear strain, again go to the curve and obtain the what it is called the new shear modulus and damping ratio. Again repeat the process. So this process is repeated for different iterations like this. You have to repeat the different iterations, and finally you have to arrive with a consistent value. That is, you have to match the iteration value with the effective shear strain values. After reaching that match, your iteration can be stopped and you will get a final values for G and psi. With these values, the transfer functions are calculated and analysis is completed. So this process is actually happening in equivalent linear analysis, and our SHAKE program is based on this type of analysis. That is, SHAKE 2000 is based on equivalent linear analysis. In equivalent linear analysis, only the difference is an iteration of soil properties are taking place due to the strain adjustment. Initially, we are starting with low shear strain, and based on the our earthquake time history, the iteration happens. So our input soil properties are iterately repeated, and finally such that our strain matches with the effective shear strain, at that time only that iteration stops. So initially, iteration starts from a very low strain with 1 G and psi values. Response analysis is started one by one. So each iteration, it will calculate the effective strain, and it tries to match with the actual effective strain. Okay, so when it matches with the actual effective strain, then only the iteration of soil property stops, and by using that final soil properties, it tries to calculate the transfer function. So iteration of soil properties based on the shear strain happens in the equivalent linear analysis. That is the main difference from our one-dimensional linear analysis and equivalent linear analysis. In equivalent linear analysis, strain-dependent soil properties are used for the analysis. Then coming into the case what we are explained earlier, that is Mexico. We have 3 sites. The acceleration spectra we observed for the 3 sites, we already shown that. And in the rock side, and comparing to the lake deposit side, the acceleration is nearly 5 times higher compared to the that hilly side. That is the conclusion we arrived earlier. These are the values shown here. So these are the catched time histories. So from these time histories, this is the response spectra obtained for the different zones. This is for that is the epicentral region, that is hilly rocky region, and you can see the rock hill region near the site, and this is zone C where the that is damages happened. I want to highlight here, that's why I have taken this example again. So you see the lake zone. See the lake zone. This is the lake zone. So in this zone, the predominant period is between 2 and 3. The predominant period of acceleration is between 2 and 3. When you go for a rock motion, the predominant period is very less. You can see it is less than 2. But when in this particular situation, the amplitude is almost the same, but the period of response is changed from 2 to 3. Okay, you can see the period is changed. The period of movement is changed. So by calculation, we can look into what is the fundamental period equation we earlier derived. That is 4 into H by Vs. Suppose that here that from the studies we already noted that the height of the deposit is 40, and from investigation they find out that the shear wave velocity is 80. Therefore, the fundamental soil period in this case is 2 seconds. Okay, fundamental period is 2 seconds. So the soil response is equal to the amplification, that is the soil amplification or resonance is equal to 2 divided by, you take into account the that is damping ratio, so its amplitude is 12.7. Okay, so the soil at the surface, what is the motion reaching at the surface is equal to, that is spectral acceleration at the surface is equal to this amplification effect into spectral acceleration at the rock level. That rock level is already 0.07, and the amplification or resonance factor is 12.7. So it reached to 0.9 G at the ground surface, and the time period which causes this is 2 seconds. So because of this reason, the structures whose time period, that is fundamental period, matches with these 2 seconds can undergo high amount of resonance also in this. That is the main reason for certain type of damages, that is height of the building, certain type of buildings only damaged in that particular region. That is the reason is the fundamental period of 2 seconds matched with the type of structures, that is time period of 2 seconds. That type of structures has undergone a resonance condition there. So in 2010 nearly, for our city also, we have done some analysis similar to this. I have give you just one or two slides about that paper written by myself and my student Remya, related to the seismic ground response analysis and zonation of our city. So this type of analysis is called a site-specific ground response analysis. We are particularly studying the soil properties of a site and very specific cases. All the things are specific to that particular site. That then it is called a site-specific ground response analysis. So here we have considered the location of the city, its latitude and longitude. We have used the GIS tool also for mapping and all these things. And the area of the rock. We already told you that the propagation of the waves depending upon the nature of the earth below this, that is rock properties. So we have considered the publications from Rajendran et al., geologist, 2009, based on the rock nature of the study area and the number of existing lineaments in the region. So Kerala, we have 41 lineaments in it, and 7 lineaments are found vulnerable for the study area. If any rupture or casualties occurs in 7 lineaments, that can affect our study area. And the nature of the soil, the rock is Precambrian age, so which is very old formations. Then we have collected the bore log details of the study area. Most of the borehole details varied from 5 to 30 meters. And the water table variation is also from 0 to 5 meters below the ground surface. And major area covered silty sand with the SPT value ranging from 1 to 60. And some places we have seen disintegrated weathered rock with the N value greater than 100 below these silty sand layers. And the remaining portion is of laterite with the N value less than 25 on the top surface. And when we go deeper, it can go N value greater than 50. And some places we have seen filled up area also. And based on the borehole details and SPT value, we have arrived shear wave velocities by using empirical correlations. For sand, we used the relationship like this. And you can see for clay, silty sand, and silt and fill. So depending upon the nature of the soil in that particular region and available, that is the standard corrected SPT values, based on corrected SPT values, the shear wave velocities of the site are obtained for this particular region. Then another parameter required for the equivalent linear analysis is the damping ratio curve and modulus reduction curve. Actually, there are different varieties of soils are existing in this city area. For conducting the laboratory studies for all type of soils, it is very costly, and our non-availability of funding, etc. We have adopted this modulus reduction and damping ratio curve of standard curves developed by seed and iris, and it is used for clay, sand, and rock respectively. But initial shear modulus is obtained from based on the site conditions, but it's a variation with the shear strain is not actually calculated in the laboratory or in, because of the availability of facilities and time required for conducting this much studies is not possible at that time. Therefore, we limited the studies such that we have taken the initial properties and the strain variation is adopted from general curves. Then from the present study, we conducted the response analysis by using Shake 2000. We have collected more than 30 sites in the city area. The shear wave velocity of the study area by calculating with this empirical correlations, it is obtained between 50 to 500 meters per second. The peak acceleration, amplification potential, spectral acceleration, and the spectral period at the ground surface are estimated by using this ground response analysis procedure. The peak ground acceleration of the study area varied from 0.01 to 0.13 in the free field motion. Okay, but in the rock level, the acceleration is 0.021 to 0.058 g. So in the rock level motion is for that particular region is 0.021 to 0.058 g. If you go for a ground response analysis, it can go up to 0.01 to 0.013. So most of the site amplification is possible. The higher peak ground acceleration at the ground surface is due to the presence of different soil profiles. That is, we have seen soft soil, then cockleshell soil, stiff soils, etc. Based on these soil layers, the most of the site, that is the ground response amplified the free field motion. The major portion of the site in the city has moderate amplification potential is there. The significant amplification potential at some location is due to the presence of filled up soils. Where the site contains filled up soils, there is a significant amplification is occurred. The spectral acceleration is above 0.4 g over 10% of the study area, that is very critical area in filled up areas. The spectral acceleration of 50% of the study area in the range of 0.2 to 0.3 g, and 40% of the area has a spectral acceleration less than 0.2 g. The spectral period coincides with the natural frequencies of 2 to 7 story building. When we calculated the spectral period, it coincides with the natural frequencies of 2 to 7 story buildings. So in that immense care is to be taken in the design when you go for medium-sized buildings. Based on the site response analysis, we prepared a microsonation map and spectral period map. All these things are mapped using our GIS tool. So this is a typical example what we have done for our city based on this ground response analysis. So with these words, I thank all of you for your patient listening for this much long time, nearly 1.5 or 145 hours listening me very patiently this boring topic. Thank you all once again. And I thank the LBS for giving me an opportunity to talk about this topic. But this topic is very relevant in earthquake geoengineering. That is my final word. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants, it is open for questions.
Participants side can interact with me if you have any queries related to this ground response analysis.
Ma'am, there is one question posted in the chat box.
Radhika, can you read that question?
Yes, ma'am. Can shape function, it's by Ms. Suhasini Madekar. Can shape functions be developed in MATLAB? How to develop transfer functions for liquefiable soils?
Okay. First question is how we can develop this in MATLAB. Yes, we can. Any waveform you can convert into Fourier form by using your that is MATLAB tools. Same way, this transfer function is also a mathematical expression. Directly, you can use MATLAB for generating transfer functions. MATLAB is a very good tool for doing these things. But when we go for liquefiable soils, here in ground response analysis, that is equivalent linear and linear analysis, the liquefaction means it is the generation of pore water pressure. But the generation of pore water pressure is not directly taken into account in the transfer functions, but it is indirectly taken in such a way that when the strain increases, the pore water pressure also increases. Because of that reason, your modulus of the soil decreases, shear modulus decreases. So variation of shear modulus with this shear strain is accounted in modulus reduction ratio and damping. Okay, so if in the laboratory you can simulate these liquefiable soils by using these liquefied soils, you can conduct laboratory studies and you can develop modulus reduction curve and damping ratio curve for that particular soil and use that curve for your analysis. So you can use your ground response analysis for that type of soils. You have to do special site-specific studies for that type of soils and develop your own shear modulus and the damping ratio curve for that particular soil. Then only you can simulate its effect under earthquake. The generic curves, it cannot be used.
Yes, madam. Thank you very much for your clear clarification on my questions. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Ma'am, there's a
Okay,
question.
Radhika?
Please suggest good reference for earthquake engineering.
In my side, I am talking about the earthquake geotechnical engineering. So all of you are familiar that the S.L. Kramer textbook is the best one for all the preliminary studies. It is very good textbook for geotechnical earthquake engineering, Kramer book. And if you go for something related to the soil and that is structure, how we can connect, then a Robert W. Day, that book authored by earthquake engineering, that book is very good book for fundamental reading. Then if you search in earthquake engineering for earthquake engineering handbook is there, earthquake engineering handbook. Then go for the structural side, Anil K. Chopra. His books are very good in structural response in earthquake engineering. Anil K. Chopra. These are the three fundamental books one should read dealing with earthquake engineering. that Kramer book, Robert Day book, and Anil Chopra.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for the wonderful session on
P.K. Chopra,
ground
we are
response
referring.
analysis.
Okay, it is very good book for structural engineers. It is very good book.
But Kramer, what is the title of the? Can you just
Geotechnical earthquake engineering.
title?
Geotechnical earthquake engineering.
Yeah,
Geotechnical
this aspect
earthquake.
we were not knowing much, but from your
But
presentation,
it's some copies are, but PDF copies are available in net also for free download.
Okay,
But
thank you
Indian
so much,
copy, Indian version of the copy, it will cost only less than 500. Indian edition, Pearson Publications.
Okay. Thanks so much. Also share email ID because
I think Radhika can do it. She can share the what is resource person's contact.
Yes, ma'am. I'll share. I'll share. them.
okay. Okay, from coordinators we can get.
thank you so much, ma'am. It was a very nice session.
If there are no more questions, maybe we can wind up the session. So thank you, ma'am, Professor Jaya, ma'am, for your wonderful session on ground response analysis. It was a detailed session. You went into the basics of the session and you presented it in a very simple manner for good understanding of the participants. And finally, you also presented a case study which you had done, which is also very useful for all the participants. Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of the Department of Civil Engineering and all the participants, I would like to extend a hearty gratitude to you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Radhika, and thank you all participants. Have a good day. Thank you all.
Dear participants, our next session is at 11:30 a.m. The next session is on effect of floor diaphragms in earthquake shaking. It will start at 11:30 a.m. in a separate link, which is shared in the WhatsApp group and through email. Thank you very much.